Hi, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Lowdown on Low Code. We're somewhere into the 20s. I'm not sure exactly which episode number we're on, but we've been kind of at this for a while now. I'm Rob Koplowitz. I'm one of your hosts. Today, my history is in enterprise software. I go back to low code development with Lotus Notes and worked at Oracle and IBM and Microsoft, and 15 years at Forrester, where I covered digital process automation, and I collaborated very closely on low code research with a fellow by the name of John River. How are you, John?
Very well, Rob. Great to be here. So I worked as an analyst for 25 years before taking a retirement vacation, I guess, for 3 years. Now back into it. And my as an analyst, I always was focused on platforms to build applications, integration, developers, and developer persona, and so forth. And stumbled on this emerging category in 2014 with my friend and colleague Clay Richardson. We called it low code, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Thanks, John. So, very quickly, our producer Jake and I spent some time with a podcast consulting company yesterday by the name of Wild Poppy Creative Consulting. Emily Holland and Angie Marie gave us all kinds of great advice. And apparently, we're supposed to be promoting ourselves. Who knew? I mean, I guess this is all new to me. So, if you're listening, whatever format you're listening on, Apple or Spotify or YouTube, please hit the like button. Please hit the follow button. This allows other like-minded folks to find us in the future. So, shameless self-promotion there. Now let's actually jump into what we're here to talk about today. So one of my favorites today, the CEO and founder of Bizagi, and we go back a long way. And we've been waiting for a long time to have him on, and we're so delighted to have you on, Gustavo. Welcome to Lowdown on Low Code.
Thank you very much, Rob. Thank you for having me here. Please don't mention the number of years we have known each other for, okay?
It's got to be what, 15, something like that.
Yeah.
It's a while, and it hasn't always, and we've certainly had our moments where we didn't agree on everything. Gustavo, we like to start each of these podcasts with what we call the Trask moment, and we'll explain that at some point why we call it that. But it's how did you get to be here? Why is our audience so interested in your story? How did you come to, number one, just find your way into this technology industry? And number two, after that, what brought about your decision to found Bizagi? Let our audience know just what an amazing story this is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we started the company a long time ago in 1989. And the company started developing ERPs for Apple computers at the time. In Colombia, I'm originally from Colombia, so Apple wanted to develop an ERP in Colombia, and we were students at uni, fascinated by the Mac, and then they hired us to develop the ERP. We then moved on to develop ERPs on the Windows platform. In those days, jobs had been sacked, Apple was going down, Microsoft was going up. So we decided to create an ERP based on client-server technologies, Windows NT in the early 90s. We later on sold that part of the business and started developing workflow solutions. And as you mentioned, Rob, we started developing workflow solutions based on Lotus Notes, Microsoft Exchange in the late 90s. And basically, the situation we would always face there was that we would acquire a new customer to develop a workflow solution, and then we would go away for 6 months to code the workflow. And after 6-8 months, we would come with the final application, and the customers would say, thank you very much. But in the meantime, while you were coding, the processes have changed. We have new people. We have new regulation. Can you please adapt the solution? And we would say, yeah, of course, it will take us another 8 months and we will charge you another $100,000. And the customer always asked, why is it so difficult to adapt software? Why do we end up adapting the business model to the software and not all the way around? So after listening this from the customers again and again, one good day we sat down with the engineers and we thought, well, if we adopt model-driven technologies, renamed as low code, and we create a clear process layer, we have the adaptability that our customers are asking for. Bear in mind that by then we had already developed 2 or 3 complete ERPs. And one thing that was obvious from the ERPs is that configuring the ERP for the specific needs of the customer was always really difficult. You had thousands of variables to configure the ERP. And it became obvious to us that what you were trying to do with those variables was to create a process description specific to the customer. Yeah. So this combination of the feedback from the customers plus the ERP experience, we said this is a cool idea. Yeah. It provides the customers with a lot of flexibility and speed to deliver results. And that's when we created Bizagi. Yeah, we're talking about the year 2003, so over 21 years ago.
And Bizagi, the name comes from?
It stands for business agility.
Huh.
And we thought it was a great name. We thought this is a fantastic name for everybody that speaks English will immediately recognize what the name stands for, only to find out later that nobody had a clue what we meant with Bizagi. So obviously this story has been started by engineers and not by marketeers.
Great. John?
I didn't know that, Gustavo. That's a great story. Yeah, I think you were probably ahead of your time in prioritizing business agility in software. So so you've Bizagi's been around for a good long while. Very robust platform, lots of features, etc. For obviously the focus on process. When your sales reps, when you think of a sales rep going into an opportunity, when that sales rep hears the client talking about their situation, what are the characteristics that say to that sales rep, this is perfect for us, this is perfect fit for what we can deliver with our platform?
The first thing is when we see the customer being conscious that they're embarking on a transformational journey, not on a specific process and that's it, not on a transaction. We believe that what we do can deliver enormous value, but in order to deliver that value, you need to have the capability and the intent to deploy this platform across many, many processes. Then you see incredible results. Yeah. So we want the initiative to be business driven, not IT driven, and understanding the transformational nature of of deploying these automation capabilities across the enterprise. That's really important for us. Clearly, you must work together with IT. So we always like customers that see this combination of business and IT, nowadays called fusion teams, but we identify that as a key aspect that is really relevant. And they must have the desire to industrialize this, to create a center of excellence of automation. That must be the end goal. And we created a framework to take them there by working together. So this concept of a long partnership and journey is fundamental, and understanding the transformational nature and being able to connect the dots between operational efficiency and business impact and new operating models, that's really important.
So transformation is, I was going to ask you to drill a little bit on that word transformation, but I think you just did. because it's a very overused word, but it sounds like it is productive change to the business, including new business models. You're not just paving the cow path of the processes you already run. By automating them, you're thinking about new ways of doing business. Is that the idea?
Yep, it's a journey. At the beginning, people don't really understand how these projects actually work because they go across divisions. There are politics involved. The platform, the low-code platform, nowadays they are much better understood. But at the beginning, customers would go like, "What? You don't program? You don't code? You save the model, interpret the model in real time? What do you mean?" Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then when they see the agility behind the platform, the capability to change things, then they get excited about thinking on how to change the business model to make it much more efficient. Normally, what we have seen in our customer base is that first they start digitizing the process. They don't necessarily think of full transformation. But after that, after digitizing the processes and gaining all the efficiencies, they start thinking in much more ambitious terms. I would say in two strands: changing the operating model to try to make things much more straight through processing, better customer service. And they do that by automating the activities. They start looking at the activities of the process and say, each activity, does it still add value? Maybe the activity was there because of an old regulation that is no longer valid. And if it still adds value, and the value dimensions are several in what we do, then they look into automating. Can we replace this decision making by an algorithm? Can we nowadays include the bot? And nowadays, can we be supporting that decision with AI, which I'm happy to get into later on during today's call.
Thank you, Rob.
So, Gustavo, I want to roll back the clock a little bit. I want to pull a bunch of strings together, and talk about sort of the technology foundation that we're going to need to do this, right? So, first off, John and we pulled our research together because we said ultimately digital process automation and low code are going to be the same thing. To build all of the applications you need, many of them are going to need process, many of them are going to need modeling, but in order to really transform, we're going to have to engage the organization, and that's going to start to get into these low code conversations. And at one point, I had this concept of DPA wide and DPA deep, which resonated very well. And I'm thinking about you and I sitting in a conference room in Miami and trying to decide whether Bizagi was wide or deep, and you said, do you remember?
Maybe I was drinking a beer and you were drinking a coffee.
You said we are the widest of the deep.
Yes.
and I'm pretty sure you were drinking a beer, but that really resonated. I think all this stuff is becoming the same thing, right? So I think when we think about transformation, there is modeling. You have to be able to put this into a visual metaphor that the business can understand. There is orchestration, which the model will drive. It'll consume heterogeneous technologies. There is this concept of involving the business, which gets us into concept of low code. Are we finally getting there, Gustavo? Are people now thinking about this this is a strategic investment that is going to be a backbone for transformation, for broad scale optimization, however we want to couch the benefits?
Oh, definitely. I do think so. It has taken a long time, Rob, but we're definitely getting there. I think
longer than we thought, by the way, Gustavo, which is one of the reasons that John and I are less retired than we used to, because we were so frustrated with how long it's taking. But yes, but sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. It has been a journey. I always found the journey fascinating in our industry. And when the RPA hype came about, I was kind of jealous. I was like, why is there so much excitement with these bots? They fitted perfectly into our model. We saw them as a way to automate activities, as I just mentioned, another technology to orchestrate and make the process more efficient. So we welcome the bots very much. The level of excitement was what I was more jealous about. I was like, of course, there's value there, but in the end-to-end process automation, there is much greater value. Mm-hmm. Now that I look back, actually, RPA has helped our industry a lot. People really understand the difference between automating a task and being able to have visibility and trying to automate the end-to-end process. So I see a significant shift happening now towards our industry because the RPA helped mature the understanding from the customers. And in parallel, we had all the cloud transition. And the cloud transition, at least in our case, we made the decision to be cloud only, not cloud first, and native to run in the cloud. And the main reason behind it was to accelerate the innovation. Yeah. The reality is when you're supporting all those on-premise versions of the software with different versions of the database and the operating system, you allocate a huge amount of resources just to keep the lights on. It's crazy. Yeah. So we made that decision a couple of years ago. It was a tough decision, and we had to transition everything, the technology, the business model, which is consumption-based in our case. We don't charge by named users. Yeah. Create the customer success capability, a huge amount of change in order to get there. But it's paying off for us fantastically. The level and the speed of innovation that we're delivering now is fascinating and it's exciting. Yeah? And this is coinciding with the interest and more focus in our industry. So I do believe it has taken longer, Rob, but we're getting there. Both the technology is becoming better and better. As I mentioned before, one of our first customers was Apple. So the concept of the application being intuitive has been in our DNA right from the beginning. It couldn't be targeting just developers. It had to target these fusion teams. And we have seen the results in very large organizations. And those customers act as beacons of the impact that the technology can have. And that helps enormously.
That's amazing. So listen, Wild Poppy, our consultants, also told me midway through the podcast I have to stop and have a commercial. So I didn't know this either. So,
okay.
So Gustavo, you specifically mentioned the role of RPA. I want to call out that, part of analysis.tech, we have Francis Cardin. Francis was the founder of OpenSpan, arguably the first RPA company. They were acquired by Pega, and Dave Marcus, also part of analysis.tech, spent many years with UiPath during their astronomical growth. And by the way, I think everything you said about the role of RPA, they would agree with wholeheartedly. But if you would like to engage further with Dave Marcus or Francis Cardin or John Reimer or myself or our chief economist, Andy Bartels, or our expert on product management and product development, Ryan Dugan, please visit analysis.tech. We do offer many services to both vendors and end users. So commercial over, back to our normal programming. John.
Thanks, Rob. You mentioned AI, Gustavo, and obviously AI is disrupting a lot of thinking, if not technology and applications. How are you thinking? How at Bizagi are you thinking about AI? How are you going to employ AI within the product to achieve your mission?
Yeah. I will mention some things technological, and then I will move to a more strategic level. The whole Gen AI revolution, if you want to call it that way, came at a very good moment for us. As I mentioned before, we had already done the transition to be cloud native, and our platform runs on top of Microsoft Azure. And as there is this agreement between Microsoft and OpenAI, they deploy those OpenAI capabilities in the private Azure cloud. So we were able to very quickly leverage the GenAI capabilities in the private cloud. So we're never sending information to the public internet, it's staying in the private instance of the customer. And we apply governance so that you cannot ask questions or get answers to questions that you're not allowed to get or see, like what's the salary of the CEO or that type of questions. So if you look back in November, when was it? 2022, the whole hype came about. Microsoft deployed the capabilities on Azure in April, May last year. And by October, we had delivered powerful capabilities within Bizagi. That's the speed of innovation that you can see from cloud native solutions. And we were lucky that it was based on the Azure platform. The way we thought about this is, okay, we saw that most of the industry was very focused on copilots. Yeah. And there's clearly value there. Yeah. But again, because we want our initiatives, even within Bizagi, to be business driven, we said, okay, yep, we can help the developers and with copilots. But are there other value dimensions that could deliver greater value? And we decided to focus more on the business user again. And we said, how do we deliver value for the business user? In an organization, you might have 100 developers and you might have 10,000 business users. So there is a factor of value there that we wanted to exploit. And we talked to many of our customers exactly on what to do there. And we came with this concept called ADA. We called it ADA for Ada Lovelace, Rob, John, yeah. Which is in the runtime application, you have this conversational analytics with actionable results. So you literally ask in natural language to the system, any question, show me the largest loans from yesterday in the branch in New York. And we use the GenAI capabilities to process that and bring back the information. And once you get the information, it's not just a reporting capability. We have the context of all the data elements so that we can display relevant actions then and there.
Right.
So that's ADA. It's in the runtime environment for all the people that build an app, a low-code app, actually no code in this case, with Bizagi. They get this capability out of the box. Imagine what this means, because internally, of course, we use Bizagi, and we create reports also based on Power BI, and I have a lot of reports. And always when I look at the reports, I come with an idea, hey, I would like to see this new dimension in the report. Maybe there is a correlation between this and that to improve customer service. And I go back to the engineers, that dimension is not in the report. Can you please include it in Power BI? And they go, yes, 2 weeks later, I have it. It's frustrating. Now you have the capability in natural language to query all the information that is in the system. And of course, we apply security and governance to all of this. So that's a second angle. So you have the copilots, then you have this end user business productivity. And the third pillar for us is, after releasing ADA, we said, how do we bring the power of GenAI into the process and into the apps? Yeah. And we came up with this concept that we call agents. So agents are very similar to RPA in the way you configure them within Bizagi, in the sense that you just connect to the GenAI and then you generate an agent. I'll give you an example. This is a real example from a customer. This is in financial services, and in this customer, all the salespeople or the commercial agents capture all the notes of the interactions with the customers, like what things make them happy, what are things that they should be improved, and those notes are stored onto a database. Now, it's very difficult to get insights about those notes. It's very difficult for an algorithm to run this unstructured data through this unstructured data and see what are the most common complaints. It's almost impossible to write an algorithm to do that. It's so difficult. It's so easy for GenAI. So you can create an agent that looks specifically into these unstructured nodes and brings back a summary of the most common new service requests or complaints from the customers. That's a real example of an agent, that we're deploying at the customer. So we're looking at these three pillars. Copilots, definitely value there, and we're embracing them. End user business productivity, and then the agents to embed them and provide really groundbreaking new capabilities for the process participants and for the people that use the applications.
Fascinating. When you, by the way, just to clarify, when you say co-pilot, I want to make sure that term gets used a lot.
Yeah,
If you could just explain
yeah.
briefly.
For us, co-pilots are on the development side. Yeah, like help me create this business rule.
Got
Help
it.
me suggest to me a claims process. Suggest to me a retail loan process. Help me create this form. Would you mind suggesting a data model for this type of process? Yeah, that's
Got it.
what we refer to as co-pilots. We see them
Right.
more on the development design time. ADA is a runtime capability for conversational analytics with actionable insights. And then the agents, they live in between because you define them at design time, but they provide very new information to the process participants or the people that are using the apps.
Right. Thank you. So the implications of this are massive. I mean, the Gen AI technology, you know, older forms of AI, more deterministic
Yep.
things, are all relevant and fairly new in terms of being applied in the mainstream. What's your vision of this? Does it take a whole lot of people out of the process, for
That's it.
example, or
Now,
does it allow for automation that we don't even think about? We barely have to even design it, and it just happens. What's the vision,
well,
Gustavo?
there are many patterns we're starting to identify which are very interesting. We don't think that processes are going to go away by any means of the imagination, at least not in the short, medium term. And the reason for that is that the process provides the governance. Our CTO gave an example. He asked, we were having a discussion, and he said, would you allow an airport to be run by AI today? And the answer was, no, 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 no. And we started asking, why not? Yeah. Well, because they hallucinate, they make mistakes, they invent stuff. And we believe that even though the reliability is increasing dramatically, there are certain processes where that error, automatic error is not allowed. Yeah, it's simply not allowed. You cannot say, no, the two planes crashed because AI made a mistake. That's, I don't think as a society we will accept that. So what we are seeing is what we call the maker-checker paradigm, where AI creates a summary of a legal case. But then the subject matter expert takes the input and says, yeah, this is okay. Check it, and it becomes official. So it's that symbiotic collaboration between AI and the human validation, the expert validation, or a doctor. The AI might scroll or through many X-rays and say, in this X-ray, this looks different, but it will be the doctor that makes the call and say, yes, that's a tumor, and we need to bring the person to surgery. So we see that symbiotic collaboration between AI and the human. Yeah, it will
Right.
make us hugely more productive. Yeah,
Right.
And the capabilities for automation around AI are enormous, and we're just starting to scratch the surface.
Right.
Now, moving forward, it was interesting internally at Bizagi. We have the typical town hall with the whole organization, and somebody asked, "Do you think that we will be able to create applications by talking to the computers?" And I said, "Yes, yeah, definitely. Particularly if the platform has this my nerdy side, what we call a full grammar. Yeah, personas, verbs, nouns. If you have a full grammar, then you can map everything from natural language into objects in the platform. Mm. And we are not far away of moving in that direction, where you just talk in natural language, and everything that you say can be mapped into the platform, and an application can be created. Yeah. So I strongly believe we're going in that direction quickly. Yeah. That's how we see the evolution. And then you have, as I mentioned before in the example from the customer, this incredible use of AI to empower decision making by humans, new types of summaries, insights into information, unstructured information, automation capabilities. This is really reinventing the industry. That's the way we see it, and that's the way we embrace it.
Yeah. Thank you. That's brilliant. Um, let's shift gears a little bit, although I think you mentioned this a couple times. Oh, first of all, Rob, do you have anything you want to add to the AI discussion?
No, I kind of want to jump into the next topic, John. I'm excited to hear what Gustavo has to say.
Okay, great. Um, so you, you have talked about business involvement and how critical that is. Business led engagements leading to long journeys, etc. There's a lot of what we're seeing out there is people struggling with how do you actually structure business involvement in the creation of these applications. You've mentioned fusion teams, which I think, for clarity's sake, is you're fusing IT pros and business experts on the same team, and they have um, responsibility to deliver together. Correct?
It's what you just said is very important. Together,
Together.
yeah.
That's right. It's not the business person
No,
sitting
it's
in the
not the
background
business
going,
person in the business unit sending requirements. That doesn't work. You need that business people inside the team,
"Yep,
and this is critical. Yeah.
yep,
So going back to your question, there are many relevant aspects of successful enterprise-wide deployments of this type of technologies, we believe. And we have seen them working. We have seen customers of us doing really amazing stuff. The ones with the best practices, they create these fusion teams. Mm. One customer of us has got a very small team, 5 people in the automation capability. Yeah. And their productivity is through the roof.
mm,
And we spoke to them, and what they had created were 2 teams. One team that they called the continuous improvement team, and
mm,
one team that was the automation, the development team. And they defined very clean roles, or what each person in the team should be doing. For example, the continuous improvement team would prioritize the business requirements because they understand the business. So if you have limited resources, they would go, we need to do this first and then this second. They would explain those business requirements to the automation development team. Yeah. They would test the delivery from the automation team. Yeah. So again, two teams, continuous improvement and automation, in a single team, working together to deliver for the business with very clearly defined roles. And their productivity was absurd. Within like 2 years, they digitized like 50 processes with those 5 people. So those kind of practices we have captured, and for us, it's very important to deliver that know-how to our customers, because internally we know that if the customers are successful at creating this capability, then the number of processes that get digitized and automated just goes through the roof. And this benefits us because we have a consumption-based model. We only make money when the customer is actually benefiting from the use of the platform. So we share that know-how and best practices from our customers with our new customers. Yeah. Now, when you said, so that's important. This combination of business and IT is critical. It's absolutely critical. I also believe that the process automation industry focus perhaps naturally too much on the process participants. So we allocate the work to the people that actually do the work. But if you think of a support process, the support manager might not be performing almost any activity of the support process. For that, you have the support engineers. And we have been good for a long time at delivering the right information to the support engineers. However, the information requirements from the manager, who is a critical stakeholder, are very different from the process participant. And if you don't cater for that in your low-code environment, then there is a disengagement between the process automation and the business managers. Yeah. In our case, that was the reason for us to introduce something that we call Bizagi apps, because we recognize that the information requirements of business managers are very different from the process participants. Right. And we wanted to enable that capability. As soon as you have the business managers using the platform on a daily basis, the adoptions across the business change dramatically. Yeah. So that's the way I see one of the hurdles that we were so focused on the process participants. And the last one is to really understand the connection between operating models, operating efficiency, and customer service, profit and loss statements. You must see that connection clearly, and you must be able to present the business case behind this for people to go, okay, I don't understand the technology, but if you can deliver this business case, we go for it.
Really great points. I thought one of the points you were going to make was that if we in the industry, in the process industry, have focused too much on the people who are operating the processes, there's a great risk that they will cause us to pave the cow path. And we won't get the outside thinking to say, how could the process be better that you get, that you hope for? You just don't want to pave the cow path. Is that something you also have ideas about how to accomplish?
No, well, I think it's connected to what I just said. It's like you need to cater for all the levels inside the organization, for the process participants, but also for the business managers. And they need to see the value proposition there. And they need to be able to understand the system and interact with the system. The system cannot be a development environment, because if you show a screen full of code to a business person, they will say, thank you very much, but bye. You're not speaking my language. Yeah? And then you must have the capabilities to connect your language to the business language, and express and translate how this, for example, you are going to automate an activity. Why are you going to automate it? Oh, I'm going to reduce the service times in this much for the end customer. And we know that reducing the time provides a competitive advantage on the business, because the shorter the time, the more business we get. Boom. Then people go, yes, now you're talking my language. You need
Right.
to be able to use that language to the business and present it in a business case.
Right. One last question for me anyway about
Yeah.
this. In talking about AI, will business people be involved, or can they be involved in actually creating those agents you described? I mean, it would seem that they know best how
It's
to apply this technology, but how do they get involved to actually create those things?
Well, I think the best way to answer that question is to explain how those agents work, at least in Bizagi. You write what in natural language what you want to get. I want to get the summary of the complaints from the customers that were in the example I gave in those notes. You write it in natural language. Then we have something that we call a prompt assistant. So you press the prompt assistant, and that button creates a very Bizagi specific prompt because it knows the data model within Bizagi. So you don't need a prompt engineer next to you. Yeah. It creates a Bizagi specific prompt to be accurate that you can modify. Then you can test it, and you see the result. The result in this case would be the most common request from our customers is to improve the response times. You get it in natural language. So these agents can be created by business people almost without any technical support. And yes, there is governance and security as in any enterprise application, but AI is empowering so many people that don't know coding or anything to coding to actually do.
Yeah, they don't know what a rag is, and they don't know any of that stuff. That's a really crucial point, Gustavo. Thanks for that. Rob, back over to you.
Yeah, listen, guys, this has been great. Um, Gustavo, I want to thank you for joining us today. Just fabulous insights. Love your perspective, your history, where you think this is going. Just thank you for taking the time to help us and our audience here
No,
today.
thank you guys.
Oh
It's
yeah,
always a
no,
pleasure to talk to you.
oh, always good to spend time with you, Gustavo. And for the audience, if you like the content that you're hearing today, please hit the like button, hit the follow button, and thank you everybody for joining and taking time out of your day to listen to our thoughts on Lowdown on Low Code.
Thank you.